As I saw the photo of all of you, smiling arm in arm on the cruise ship, with the caption "Special People Only," I understood that I had been deceived in the cruelest way. Yet, as I looked at the picture on my phone, my fingers trembling slightly, I was already mentally organizing drawers, separating documents, and recalling the bank account number she didn't even know I had. At 69, I had learned that true strength doesn't come from screams, but from the silence that precedes the storm. It all began 3 weeks earlier when Valeria called me with that honeyed voice I knew all too well. "Mom, I have a wonderful surprise for you," she said, and I could feel the fake smile through the phone. "How about a family weekend? It's been so long since we've spent time together. Just us." My heart warmed in that moment, because despite everything, I believed my daughter truly loved me. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, already imagining long conversations late into the night. Maybe cooking together, like we did when she was little. "When were you thinking?" I asked, already planning what to pack, what to cook for her. "This coming weekend," she said quickly. "Weston will be busy with work, so it'll just be you and me, like old times." There was something in her tone that should have alerted me, but I was so hungry for genuine attention from my daughter that I ignored that small inner voice warning me. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. Finally, Valeria had chosen me over her friends, her work, her social plans. Finally, I was the priority. How foolish I was to believe that after years of feeling like another piece of furniture in her life, she would suddenly value me. I spent the whole week preparing. I went to the hair salon and had my hair done. I bought a new blouse I knew she would like. I even practiced some recipes I remembered she loved as a child. Alexandra, my friend from the walking group, had told me I was beaming. "You can see the happiness on your face, Margaret," she said as we drank coffee after our morning routine at the park. "Valeria invited me to spend the weekend with her," I told her, unable to hide the excitement in my voice. "It's been so long since we had time just for us." Alexandra looked at me with that expression I already knew, that mix of concern and affection she had when she wanted to tell me something but didn't dare. "Just be careful, Margaret," she finally said, taking my hand across the table. "You know, I love you like a sister, but Valeria." She paused, as if carefully choosing her words. "Valeria always seeks you out when she needs something." "This time it's different," I insisted. Although a part of me knew Alexandra was right, she said she wanted to spend time with me, that she missed me. Now, remembering that conversation, I realize how desperate I sounded, how much I needed to believe my daughter valued me. On Friday afternoon, I carefully packed my small bag. I packed my favorite nightgown, a few comfortable blouses, my blood pressure medication, and of course, the ingredients for her favorite enchiladas. As I drove to her house, I had butterflies in my stomach like a teenager going on a first date. It had been so long since I truly felt anticipated by someone. I arrived at her house at 6 p.m. as arranged. I rang the doorbell and waited, hearing the barking of her 2 golden retrievers from inside. I waited a bit longer. I rang again. Finally, I also heard the meowing of the cats. Something was wrong. I pulled out my phone and called Valeria. "Mom, you're here," she said, her voice sounding strange, as if she was on the move. "Look, there's been a slight change of plans. I'm inside, in my bedroom. The door's open. Just go in." As I pushed open the front door, I was immediately greeted by Duke and Princess, her 2 golden retrievers, who jumped on me desperately. The 3 cats immediately appeared, meowing as if they hadn't eaten in days. The house was dark, silent, and had that atmosphere of abandonment you feel when no one is home. "Valeria." I called, but there was no answer. I went to her bedroom, but it was empty. Then I saw the yellow envelope on the kitchen table with my name in my daughter's hurried handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Mom, we had to leave urgently. Please take good care of the dogs and cats. There's food in the fridge for you and for them. We'll be back Sunday night. I love you, Valeria." I stood there, reading and rereading that note, feeling something break in my chest. It wasn't just disappointment, it was the slow, painful realization that I had been used again.
Again, I had mistaken need for love.
The animals were still around me, obviously hungry and attention-starved. Automatically, I began searching for their food, filling their water bowls, cleaning the litter boxes, which clearly hadn't been cleaned in days. As I did so, I felt a mix of anger and sadness I didn't know how to process. Then I saw her iPad open on the sofa with her active Facebook profile, and there was the photo that would change everything. Valeria, Weston, and their closest friends, all elegantly dressed, arm in arm on the deck of a spectacular cruise ship. All smiling, all happy, all looking like they were having the time of their lives. And the description, those words that would be etched into my memory forever, special people only. In that moment, holding the iPad with trembling hands, I understood that it hadn't been a last-minute change of plans. It had been planned all along. I had never been invited for a family weekend. I had been invited to be the free pet sitter while they enjoyed themselves without me. But in that moment, something interesting happened. Instead of crying, instead of calling her screaming, instead of throwing a tantrum like the Margaret of years past would have, a strange calm enveloped me. It was as if a part of me that had been dormant for years had finally awakened. I sat on her sofa, surrounded by her pets, who had finally settled down after eating, and began to think, to plan, to decide. Because if I had learned anything in my 69 years, it was that dignity is not begged for, but reclaimed. And I was ready to reclaim mine. On Saturday morning, I woke up on Valeria's sofa, with Duke using my legs as a pillow and Princess cuddling up beside me. The cats had taken possession of the remaining armchairs, and for a moment, before I fully remembered where I was and why, I felt a strange peace. These animals had shown me more genuine affection in one night than my own daughter had in months. I slowly got up, careful not to wake my new companions, and went to the kitchen. As I made coffee, my phone vibrated with a message from Alexandra. "How's your weekend with Valeria? Hope you're having a good time, friend." I took a picture of the 5 animals following me into the kitchen like a procession and sent it to her with the message, "Here are my weekend companions." Alexandra replied immediately, "Where's Valeria?" And I decided, for the first time in a long time, to be completely honest, on a cruise with her friends. "I'm taking care of her pets." The ellipsis appeared and disappeared several times before her reply came. "Margaret, my dear, when will you draw the line?" That question haunted me as I fed the animals and explored my daughter's house with new eyes. It was a beautiful, modern house, full of every comfort money could buy. Photos of her and Weston everywhere, trips to exotic places, elegant dinners, gatherings with friends, and I appeared in exactly 3 photos: her college graduation, her wedding, and a family Christmas photo from 2 years ago, where I was half cropped out of the frame in the corner. I opened my WhatsApp and saw I had several messages from the walking group. Emery had sent pictures of her new grandchild. Chase was sharing a fish recipe he had tried, and Alexandra had sent a video of her yoga class in the park. It was my group, my true tribe, the women who truly cared about me and genuinely inquired about my well-being. I decided to take a selfie with Duke and Princess. Both looked at the camera with their tongues hanging out, and I sent it to the group with the message, "My new weekend companions." The replies came instantly. "Emery, how lovely." "Chase, you adopted dogs?" And Alexandra, who knew the situation, "Margaret, call me when you can." But I didn't call. Instead, I showered, dressed carefully, and decided to explore Valeria's neighborhood. I leashed the dogs, and we went for a walk. It was an affluent neighborhood, full of large houses and pristine lawns. And as we walked, something became clear to me that I had never noticed before. I didn't belong here. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because this wasn't my world. My world was my cozy apartment, my friends from the walking group, my Friday routine at the beauty salon, my computer classes at the community center. For years, I had tried to fit into Valeria's life, to be the mother she wanted for her friends and her husband. I had pretended interest in her conversations about investments and real estate. I had smiled when she introduced me as my mother, who lives alone but she's doing fine. I had accepted being relegated to the kitchen at her family gatherings. I had lost parts of myself trying to be the version of a mother she could tolerate. I returned to the house to find the cats waiting at the door as if they were worried about my absence. As I gave them fresh water, my phone rang. It was Valeria. "Mom, how are things?" she asked. And I could hear music in the background, laughter, the sound of people having fun. The dogs aren't giving you any trouble, are they? Everything's okay. Everything's fine, I replied with a calm that surprised even me. The animals are well taken care of. Oh, you're a gem, she said, and I could hear someone in the background calling. Hey Mom, I have to go. We're on a super fun excursion. I'll call you later. Yeah, sure, I said, but she had already hung up. I stood there holding the phone, feeling a mix of sadness and something else. Something that took me a moment to identify. Relief. Relief from having to pretend everything was okay. Relief from having to pretend it didn't hurt. Relief from having to be the perfect, understanding mother I had always tried to be. I opened my photo app and began scrolling back through months of pictures. There was my real life. Photos with Alexandra at the cafe, selfies after my aerobics classes, pictures of my small victories, like learning Instagram, photos of my morning walks, my potted garden on my apartment balcony. A simple life, but mine. A life where I was the main character, not the supporting character. I made a decision that surprised me with its clarity. I pulled out my phone and found Ryder's number, my retired neighbor, who had always told me not to hesitate to ask if I needed anything. We had become friends during the pandemic months, when we were both alone and would meet at the grocery store or pharmacy. He always asked about Valeria, and I always told him how busy she was, how successful she was, how proud I was of her. I had never told him the truth about how lonely I sometimes felt. Ryder, I said when he answered, I know it's strange for me to call, but I need to ask you a favor. Of course, Margaret, he replied immediately. What do you need? Could you please go to my apartment and get a few things for me? I'm taking care of Valeria's pets, and I'll be staying longer than I thought. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. I need my medication, a few blouses, and my phone charger. Sure, he said, without asking questions. Do you have a spare key? Yes, it's in the hiding spot I showed you, under the geranium pot. An hour later, Ryder arrived with a small bag of my things. When I opened the door, he looked at me with that expression I knew, the same one I'd seen on Alexandra's face. Concern mixed with affection. Margaret, he said softly, I don't know exactly what's going on, but if you need to talk or need anything, just say so. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone truly saw me, not as Valeria's mother, not as the available caregiver, not as the grandmother who could be useful when needed, but as Margaret, as a person deserving of genuine care and concern. Thank you, Ryder, I said, and I felt tears in my eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of gratitude for having people in my life who valued me for who I was. That night, while the animals slept around me, I sat in Valeria's kitchen with my tablet, scrolling through my social media. I saw photos of my friends, their families, their small everyday joys. I saw photos of Valeria on the cruise, all carefully edited and filtered to showcase the perfection she had always sought. And for the first time, I felt no envy, but clarity. I was 69 years old, healthy, with a small nest egg, a cozy apartment, and friends who genuinely loved me. I had a life I had built with my own hands after becoming a widow. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And it was time to decide whether I wanted to continue trying to fit into someone else's life, or if I wanted to honor the life I had created for myself. As I pondered, my phone vibrated with a message from Alexandra. Are you okay? Your silence worries me. And for the first time in a long time, I replied with complete honesty. I'm okay. I'm thinking. I'm deciding what I want to do with the rest of my life. Her reply came instantly. It was about time, my dear. It was about time. On Sunday morning, I woke up with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. The animals seemed to have adopted a routine with me, and as I prepared their breakfast, my phone rang. It was Valeria, and for the first time in a long time, I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom, good morning, she said with that cheerful voice she used when she wanted something. How did you sleep? The dogs behaved well last night, didn't they? Good morning, Valeria, I replied, noticing how my voice sounded different. Controlled. The animals are good. Everyone is well taken care of. Oh, you're a gem, she said, and I could hear the sound of the ocean in the background. Hey Mom, I need to tell you something. It turns out Weston met some friends on the cruise, and they invited us on an extra excursion that ends tomorrow night. Would you mind terribly staying one more day? I know it's a lot to ask, but you know how these opportunities are. There it was, manipulation disguised as a favor, emotional blackmail cloaked in false affection, the pattern that had defined our relationship for years. But this time, something had changed in me. Valeria, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Before I answer that, I need to ask you a question. When exactly did you plan this cruise? There was a pause. What do you mean, Mom? It's a simple question. When did you buy the tickets for this cruise? Well, a few weeks ago. But it was a last-minute surprise. And was that before or after you invited me to spend the weekend with you? The silence stretched so long that I thought the call had disconnected. Finally, Valeria spoke, and her voice had completely changed. Mom, I don't know why you're asking me these questions. I thought you'd be happy to help me. You were always so good to me, Valeria, I interrupted her, feeling a strength in my voice I didn't recognize. I saw the photo. The photo with everyone arm in arm, with the description special people only. I saw when you posted it. I saw your friends' comments congratulating you on the trip they'd been planning for weeks. The silence after that was different. It was no longer the pause of someone making an excuse. It was the silence of someone caught red-handed. Mom, I can explain. No, I said, and the word came out with more force than I expected. You don't need to explain anything to me. You need to listen. I will take care of your animals until you return, because they can't help it. But when you come back, you and I are going to have a very serious conversation. I don't understand why you're so upset, Valeria said, and I could hear the frustration in her voice. I'm asking you for a favor, like I always do. I thought you'd be happy to help me. You know what, Valeria? You're right. You've always asked me for favors. I've always said yes, but this time it's different, because this time you lied to me. You made me believe you wanted me here, when in reality, you just needed me. Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic. It's just one more day. It's not just one more day, I said, feeling decades of pent-up frustration in my throat. It's a pattern. It's the way you've treated me for years, as if I were your personal assistant, available 24/7, not your mother. My assistant? Mom, how can you say that? I love you, you know that. Do you love me? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was doing? When was the last time you invited me to something without needing me to watch someone or something? When was the last time you included me in something because you wanted my company, not my services? There was no answer, because there wasn't one, and we both knew it. Mom, she finally said, her voice smaller. I didn't know you felt that way. You didn't know? I asked, and a bitter laugh escaped me. Valeria, I'm your mother. I've been there for you. Every time you've needed me in 69 years. I've cancelled plans, changed appointments, put my own life aside, every time you snapped your fingers. And I did it because I love you, but you've never done it for me. That's not true, she protested, but her voice sounded defensive, not convincing. That's not true. When was the last time you remembered my birthday without me having to remind you? When was the last time you asked about my friends, my classes, my interests? Do you even know I take computer classes? Do you know Alexandra and I won a small domino tournament last month? Do you know Ryder taught me how to use new apps on my phone? Each question was like peeling a bandage off a wound I had ignored for too long. And with each question, I realized how much of my life I had kept secret. Not because I didn't want to share it, but because Valeria had never shown genuine interest. Mom, I didn't know those things were important to you. Everything about me should be important to you, I said, feeling tears in my eyes. I am your mother, Valeria. I am not your pet sitter. I am not your cleaning service. I am not your free caregiver. I am a person with feelings, with my own life, with dignity. I never treated you like an employee, she said, but her voice sounded less certain. No? Then tell me, when was the last time you paid me to take care of your animals? When was the last time you offered me money to clean your house when you returned from a trip? When was the last time you said thank you and truly meant it? The silence after that was deafening. I could hear the sound of the waves, the distant music, the laughter of her friends. Her perfect world, her perfect life built on my unconditional availability. Mom, she finally said, I think you're overreacting. I have always loved and respected you. Respected, the word whipped out of me. Valeria, respect is what you show your friends when you invite them on a cruise. Respect is what you show Weston when you discuss plans with him before making decisions. Respect is what you haven't shown me for years. I don't know why you're being so cruel to me, she said, and I could hear her starting to cry. I always thought we had a good relationship. We had a convenient relationship, I said, feeling a painful but necessary clarity. Convenient for you. I gave, you took, I adapted, you demanded, I sacrificed, you took it for granted. So what do you want me to do? She asked. And there was a hint of desperation in her voice that I had never heard before. I want us, when you return, to sit down as adults and talk about what our relationship will look like from now on, because it cannot continue as it is. Are you threatening me? She asked, and I could hear her sadness turning to anger. I'm not threatening you, I said with a calm that surprised me. I'm informing you. I am your mother, and I will always love you. But I am also Margaret Webber, and Margaret Webber deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, even by her own daughter. Mom, I think you're being very dramatic about something very small. Small? I asked, feeling a new strength in my voice. Valeria, you lured me here. You lied to me about your plans. You used me as a free babysitter while you had fun with your friends. And when I confronted you, your first reaction wasn't to apologize, but to trivialize my feelings. You think that's small? There was no immediate answer. I could hear someone calling her in the background, probably for another fun cruise activity. Mom, I have to go, she finally said. We'll talk when I get back. Yes, I said. We will talk, but this time, you will listen. Truly listen. I hung up and remained standing in my daughter's kitchen, surrounded by her pets, feeling a mix of exhaustion and liberation. I had said the words I had held back for years. I had set a boundary. I had defended my dignity. Duke came closer and rested his head on my lap, as if he knew I needed comfort. I gently stroked him, realizing that these animals had shown me more unconditional affection in one weekend than my own daughter had in months. My phone vibrated with a message from Alexandra. How do you feel after talking to her? I had told her about the conversation I had just had. Liberated, I replied. Scared, but liberated. Should I come over and keep you company? No. I wrote. I need to be alone to think about what comes next. Because I knew something had changed forever. I had crossed a line, said truths that could not be unsaid. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for the consequences. On Monday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest, as if I had been holding my breath for years and had finally exhaled. The animals already knew my routine. Duke and Princess followed me into the kitchen. The cats sat in their favorite spots, all patiently waiting while I prepared their breakfast and my coffee. As I checked my phone, I saw I had 3 messages from Valeria from the night before. The first said, Mom, I've been thinking about our conversation. The second, I think we both said things we didn't mean to say. And the third, we can fix this when I get back. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I took my coffee and went with Duke and Princess to Valeria's small backyard. It was a beautiful, perfectly maintained garden, the upkeep of which cost a fortune. As the dogs explored the yard, I sat on one of the elegant chairs and thought about something that had been bothering me since the previous day's conversation. Valeria had said she didn't know her actions hurt me, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that wasn't true. I remembered all the times she had seen pain in my eyes and had chosen to ignore it. I remembered all the times she had changed the subject when I tried to talk about my feelings. I remembered all the times she had trivialized my concerns by calling me dramatic or sensitive. My phone rang. It was Alexandra. Good morning, my dear, she said. How did you sleep? Pensive, I replied. Alexandra, do you think Valeria truly didn't know she was hurting me? Or do you think she didn't care to know? There was a long pause. Alexandra was my most honest friend, but also the most careful with my feelings. Margaret, she finally said, I think Valeria always knew exactly what she was doing. I think she gambled that you would never say anything, and she lost that bet. Her words hurt because they confirmed what I already knew deep down. Valeria wasn't an unconscious daughter who accidentally hurt her mother. She was an adult woman who had deliberately chosen to exploit my unconditional love for her benefit. You know what hurts me the most? I said to Alexandra. It's not that she lied to me about the cruise. It's that her first reaction when I confronted her wasn't to apologize, but to find ways to justify what she had done. And what are you going to do now? Alexandra asked. I don't know, I admitted, but I know I can no longer pretend this is okay. After hanging up with Alexandra, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. Take care of myself. I searched on Google and found a beauty salon near Valeria's house. I called and got an appointment for 2 o'clock that afternoon. Afterward, I looked for a nice restaurant to eat lunch alone. If I was going to spend my last day here, I would spend it how I wanted. Before I left, I took a picture of all the animals together on the sofa. They looked content and relaxed, as if they had been waiting for years for someone to truly care for them. I uploaded the photo to my Instagram with the caption, "My weekend companions." Sometimes true love comes from the most unexpected places. The comment came immediately from Valeria. You're uploading photos of my house to your social media? For the first time, her controlling tone didn't intimidate me. I replied, these are photos of animals I'm taking care of. I don't see the problem. The problem is that it makes it look like you're vacationing in my house. Vacationing, I wrote, feeling the indignation in my throat. Valeria, I'm cleaning up the mess you left. Feeding animals you abandoned, and keeping your house running while you're on a real cruise. If that sounds like a vacation to you, maybe you should rethink your definition of the word. There was no reply. At the beauty salon, the stylist, a young woman named Carla, asked me what I wanted to do. I want to look how I feel, I said freely. She cut my hair shorter than it had been in years. She added subtle highlights that brightened my face. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. A woman who looked strong, determined, dignified. You look beautiful, Carla said. Is there a special occasion? Yes, I said, smiling genuinely for the first time in days. I'm celebrating finally standing up for myself. At the restaurant, I ordered what I wanted without worrying about the price or if it was too much. I ordered wine with lunch, something I never did. I took selfies and sent them to my group chat. The replies came immediately. You're glowing. That haircut suits you perfectly. You can tell you're happy. When I returned to Valeria's house that afternoon, I sat in her perfectly decorated living room and truly saw it for the first time. Everything was beautiful, expensive, immaculate, but there was nothing personal, nothing that spoke of memories or love. The only family photos were professional, perfectly staged. There was no clutter, no real life, no warmth. My apartment, on the other hand, was full of little things that made me happy. Plants I had nurtured, photos with my friends, memories of small trips, books I had read. My life might not be perfect for Instagram, but it was authentic. My phone rang. It was Valeria again. Mom, I saw your photos on Instagram. You look different. I feel different, I said honestly. Why were you at the salon? With what money? The question surprised me with its audacity. Valeria, I'm 69 years old. I have my own pension, my own savings, and my own money. I don't need your permission to go to the salon. That's not what I meant, she said quickly. It's just that you look so, I don't know, different. I am different, I said. I'm starting to remember who I am when I'm not trying to be the mother you want me to be. What does that mean? It means that for years, I tried to make myself smaller to fit into your life. I pretended my feelings weren't important, that my needs weren't valid, that my only purpose was to be there for you. But I can't do that anymore. Mom, I feel like you're punishing me for asking for help. I'm not punishing you for asking for help, I said with crystal clear clarity. I'm holding you accountable for lying to me, for using me, and for treating my pain as dramatic and irrational. So, what do you want from me? She asked. And I could hear genuine frustration in her voice. I want you, when you return tomorrow, to look me in the eye and admit that what you did was wrong. I want you to sincerely apologize. Not because you feel trapped, but because you understand that you hurt someone who loves you. And I want you to assure me that you will never lie to me or use me in this way again. And if I do that, everything will go back to how it was? No, I said, and the word came out with a force that surprised me. Nothing will go back to how it was, because I won't go back to how I was. The Margaret who accepted everything to keep the peace is gone. The Margaret who put your needs above her own dignity is gone. The new Margaret has boundaries and will uphold them. The silence after that was long and uncomfortable. I don't know if I like this new version of you, she finally said, and her unintentional honesty hit me like a blow. I know, I said sadly. And that's exactly the problem. Valeria, you loved the version of me that was convenient for you, but that version was slowly killing me. I didn't know you felt that way, she mumbled. Yes, you did, I said, softly but firmly. Deep in your heart, you always knew you were asking too much of me and giving too little in return. But it was easier to ignore it than to change. So, what happens now? She asked. And for the first time in the conversation, I heard genuine fear in her voice. Now, I said, looking out the window at the perfect garden where Duke and Princess were happily playing, we find out if you can truly love the real version of me, or if you could only love the version that never said no. That night, as I prepared for my last night in Valeria's house, I realized I no longer felt like a guest in her house. I felt like someone passing through, someone who had come to learn something important about herself and was almost done with the lesson. Tomorrow, my daughter would return, and we would find out who we truly were when we could no longer pretend the problem didn't exist. On Tuesday morning, I woke up with the knowledge that it was my last day in this house. And for the first time in years, I woke up with a plan. Not a plan to please someone else, but a plan to protect myself. As I fed the animals, I opened my notes app on my phone and began to write. Not a dramatic message, not a list of complaints, but something I needed to stay firm when Valeria returned with her tears and promises. Margaret Weber's boundaries. I wrote that at the top, and then methodically began to list everything I would no longer tolerate. No more lies disguised as invitations, no more unannounced caregiving duties, no more trivializing my feelings, no more taking my availability for granted. Each line I wrote felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Alexandra sent me a message. How do you feel on your last day? I took a photo of my list and sent it to her. Preparing for war, I wrote. It's not war, my dear, she replied instantly. It's diplomacy. You're setting the rules for your own territory. At 11 a.m., my phone rang. It was Valeria. Mom, we've arrived at the port. We'll be home around 6 o'clock. Is everything okay? Everything is fine, I replied. And it was true. For the first time in a long time, everything was exactly as it should be. Hey, Mom. Her voice changed, becoming softer, more manipulative. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. You're right about some things, and I want to talk when I arrive. Perfect, I said. I've been thinking too. You've been upset this whole time because I don't want you to be upset with me. There it was again. Her concern wasn't for the fact that she had hurt me, but for the consequences of having hurt me. It wasn't genuine guilt. It was discomfort with my reaction. I'm not upset, Valeria, I said with a calm that surprised me. I'm clear. What does that mean? It means that when you arrive, we'll have an adult conversation about our relationship. And this time, you won't be able to change the subject, trivialize my feelings, or make me feel guilty for speaking up. There was a pause. Mom, sometimes you talk as if I'm a bad daughter. You're not a bad daughter, I said honestly. You are a daughter who has made bad decisions about how she treats her mother. There's a difference. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I decided to do something I knew would annoy her. but what I needed to do for myself. I invited Alexandra to pick me up. Not because I couldn't face Valeria alone, but because my daughter needed to see that I had people in my life who valued me. Are you sure? Alexandra asked me when I called her. Completely sure, I said. I want Valeria to understand that I'm not isolated, that I don't just depend on her for company and support. Alexandra arrived at 6:30 p.m., 30 minutes before Valeria. When I opened the door, the 5 animals greeted her as if she were family. That made Alexandra laugh. These animals have better judgment than some people, she said, stroking Duke. They've also been better company than some people, I replied. As we heard Valeria's car in the driveway, Alexandra took my hand. Remember, she said. You're the one who needs the apology here. Valeria came through the front door, Weston behind her, carrying luggage. She looked tanned, relaxed, beautiful, and when she saw me with Alexandra in her living room, her expression immediately changed. Hi, Mom, she said, coming closer to give me a kiss on the cheek. Hello, Alexandra. Hello, Valeria, Alexandra replied with that cool politeness she used when she didn't like someone but was too polite to show it. I didn't know you had company, Valeria said, looking at Alexandra as if she were an intruder. Alexandra came to pick me up, I said simply. After we talk, I'm leaving with her. You're leaving? The surprise in her voice was genuine. I thought you'd stay for dinner, that we could talk quietly. We can talk now, I said, gesturing to the sofa. Weston, could you give us a few minutes? Weston, who had been trying to become invisible since he came in, nodded quickly and disappeared into the kitchen. Valeria sat opposite me, and I could see in her eyes that she was trying to calculate the situation. Alexandra sat beside me, not as my lawyer, but as my silent support. Mom, Valeria began, I want you to know that I'm very sorry you felt bad this weekend. It wasn't my intention to hurt you, Valeria, I interrupted her gently. That's not an apology, that's a statement that you regret the consequences of your actions, not the actions themselves. Her face tensed. What's the difference? The difference, I said, pulling out my phone and reading my notes, is that a genuine apology explicitly acknowledges what you did wrong. You lied to me about this weekend. You used me as a free babysitter while you had fun. And when I confronted you, you trivialized my feelings. No. Let me finish, I said firmly. A genuine apology also includes a commitment not to repeat the behavior. And a genuine apology doesn't come with excuses or justifications. Valeria looked at me as if seeing a stranger. I don't know why you're being so hard on me. I'm not hard on you, I said. I'm being honest with you for the first time in years. I'm being completely honest about how I feel and what I need. And what do you need? She asked. And I could hear frustration in her voice. I need you to admit that what you did was wrong. I need a sincere apology, and I need to know that you will never lie to me or use me in this way again. And if I do that, will everything go back to normal? No, I said clearly, because normal was you taking advantage of me, and me letting you. That normal is over. Valeria looked at Alexandra, as if she could somehow help her. Alexandra simply looked back with a neutral expression. I don't understand why you're making this so complicated, Valeria finally said. It was just a misunderstanding. I stood up from the sofa. Valeria, if deceiving your mother into taking care of your pets while you have fun is just a misunderstanding for you, then there's nothing more to discuss here. You're leaving? She asked. And for the first time, I heard genuine panic in her voice. I'm leaving, I confirmed, and I won't come back until you're ready for an honest conversation about our relationship. Are you cutting me out of your life? She asked, also standing up. No, I said, picking up my bag. I'm giving you the opportunity to decide if you want a real relationship with me, or if you just wanted an available employee who resembled your mother. I walked to the door, with Alexandra by my side. At the last moment, I turned around. Valeria, I said, when you're ready to treat me with the respect you would show anyone else in your life, call me but not before. We left the house, leaving Valeria standing in the living room, surrounded by the animals who had been better company to me in days than she had in years. 2 weeks passed without a word from Valeria. 2 weeks in which I woke up every morning in my own apartment, had breakfast at my own pace, and focused on rediscovering who Margaret Webber was when she wasn't constantly worrying about pleasing her daughter. Alexandra came over for coffee every morning, and during those coffee sessions, she helped me process what had happened. "Do you feel guilty?" she asked me one Friday, as we watched people pass by the cafe window. "Sometimes," I admitted, but then I remember that all I asked for was to be treated with basic respect, and the guilt disappears. During those 2 weeks, something interesting happened. My phone started ringing more often, but it wasn't Valeria, it was Emery inviting me to lunch. It was Chase sending me funny videos. It was Ryder asking if I wanted to accompany him to the farmer's market. It was as if by liberating myself from the constant drama with Valeria, I had created space for other relationships to flourish. On Friday evening, I was watching a movie with Alexandra when my phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Grandma Margaret, it's Angelina. Can we talk?" Angelina was Valeria's daughter, my 20-year-old granddaughter, studying medicine in another city. I hadn't heard from her in months. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied immediately. "Should I call you?" My phone rang 5 minutes later. "Grandma," Angelina said, her voice sounding nervous. "My mom told me what happened 2 weeks ago." "Oh," I said cautiously. "And what exactly did she tell you?" "She said you had a terrible fight, that you were very angry with her, and that you haven't spoken to her since." "Did she tell you why I was angry with her?" There was a pause. "She said you got dramatic because she had an urgent trip and asked you to take care of the animals." There it was. Even now, even after everything that had happened, Valeria was still rewriting the story, portraying herself as the victim. "Angelina," I said gently, "would you like to hear my version of what happened?" "Yes," she said immediately, "because I know my mom and I know you, and something doesn't add up in her story." I told Angelina everything. I told her about the fake invitation, about the cruise photo, about the conversation where I confronted Valeria, and about her reaction. Angelina listened in silence, only interrupting to ask clarifying questions. "Wow," she said when I finished, "I'm so sorry she did that to you, and I'm sorry she tried to make me believe you were the one acting irrationally." "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, feeling an enormous relief that at least one person in my family could see the situation clearly. "You know what bothers me the most?" Angelina continued. "It's that she does that. She rewrites situations to make the other person look bad when she's the one behaving wrongly." "Has she done that to you too?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Constantly," Angelina said with a sigh. "That's why I distanced myself so much when I started college. I was tired of walking on eggshells, tired of everything always being my fault, tired of apologizing for things I hadn't done wrong." We talked for 2 hours. Angelina told me about her studies, about her boyfriend whom Valeria had criticized without even knowing him, about her plans to specialize in pediatrics. She told me about her real life, not the edited version Valeria allowed her to share with me. "Grandma," she said before hanging up, "I'm glad you finally set boundaries with her. Someone had to. Aren't you worried our family is falling apart?" I asked. "Grandma, our family was already separate, only now it's honest." On Saturday morning, as I watered my plants on the balcony, my phone rang. It was Valeria. "Mom," she said, and her voice sounded different. "Can we talk?" "Of course," I said, but not with the anxious desperation of before, with calm. "I spoke with Angelina last night," she said. "Me too," I replied. "She said you told her your version of what happened." "I told her the truth of what happened," I corrected her. There was a long pause. "Mom, I think you were right about some things." "About what things exactly?" I asked. I had learned not to accept vague apologies. That I lied to you about the cruise, that I used you to take care of the animals, that I didn't treat you with respect. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. "And why do you think you did those things?" "Why?" "Because it was convenient," she finally admitted. "Because I knew you would say yes. Because I took advantage of the fact that you love me." I felt tears in my eyes, but not from sadness but from relief. Finally, my daughter was being honest. And how do you feel about that? I asked her. I feel terrible, she said, and I could hear her crying. I feel like a bad daughter. I feel like I treated my own mother like an employee. And what do you want to do about it? I asked her. I want to truly apologize. I want to change the way I treat you. I want to truly get to know you, not just need you. Are you willing to do the work that requires? I asked. Are you willing to listen when I tell you something hurts me, without getting defensive? Are you willing to include me in your life because you want my company, not because you need my help? Yes, she said immediately. Yes, I want to try. Valeria, I said softly. What happened cannot be undone. The trust has been lost, and it will take time to rebuild it. But if you truly want to try, I want to try too. What do you need from me? She asked. I need that when you invite me to something, it's because you truly want me there. I need that when you ask me for help, you ask me honestly, not disguised as something else. And I need that when I tell you something hurts me, you listen without trying to justify why I shouldn't feel that way. I can do that, she said. I can invite you to lunch on Sunday, just to talk, just to spend time together, without any hidden agenda. I would love that very much, I said, and I meant it. After hanging up, I remained on my balcony, looking at the city stretching before me. Alexandra had been right. It hadn't been war, it had been diplomacy. I had negotiated the terms of my own dignity, and for the first time in years, I had one. My phone vibrated with a message from Angelina. How was the conversation with Mom? Promising, I replied, but only time will tell if she's truly ready to change. I love you, Grandma, she wrote. I'm proud of you. I love you too, my child, I replied. And I'm proud of the woman you've become. That night, as I prepared for bed, in my own apartment, surrounded by my own things, I realized I had reclaimed something I had unknowingly lost. My self-respect. Tomorrow I would have lunch with Valeria, but this time as Margaret Weber, not as the mother desperate for validation I had been for so many years. Sunday arrived with an anxiety I hadn't felt in years, but it was different. It wasn't the fear of someone afraid of disappointing others, but the fear of someone about to find out if an important change was genuine or just temporary. Valeria had chosen a new restaurant downtown, a place neither of us knew, which seemed symbolic to me. Neutral territory for a conversation that would determine if we had a future as mother and daughter, or if we merely shared blood. I arrived 10 minutes before the agreed time, something I always did, but this time not out of fear of being late, but because I needed a few minutes to compose myself, to remember my boundaries, to emotionally prepare for whatever was to come. Valeria arrived on time, which was already different. She usually arrived 10 to 30 minutes late, always with a detailed excuse about traffic or a last-minute problem. This time, she simply arrived when she said she would. Hello, Mom, she said, giving me a kiss on the cheek that felt genuine, not automatic. Hello, Valeria, I replied, studying her face. She looked tired, as if she had lost sleep, but she also looked present. Completely present in a way I hadn't seen in years. We sat down and spent the first few minutes in silence, studying the menu. But it was a comfortable silence, not tense. Finally, Valeria put her menu aside and looked me directly in the eyes. Mom, she said, I've been doing a lot of thinking these 2 weeks, about us, about our relationship, about the way I've treated you. And what have you thought? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I've thought that Angelina was right when she told me I treated you like an employee instead of my mother. I've thought that Alexandra was right when she once told me I took your love for granted. And I've thought that you were right when you told me I mistook need for love. Each admission felt like a small miracle. Not because I didn't already know these things were true, but because Valeria was finally seeing them too. You know when I realized you were completely right? She asked me. When? When I came home after you left, and the animals were still looking for you. Duke stood by the door for hours waiting for you to come back, and I realized you had given them more attention and affection in 3 days than I had given them in months. I remained silent, letting her continue. And then I thought about how often I had done the exact same thing with you. Expected you to be there when I needed you, without ever asking myself what you needed from me. And how do you feel about that realization? I asked her. I'm ashamed, she said, and her eyes filled with tears. I feel guilty, and I'm afraid it's too late to fix what I broke. Valeria, I said softly, shame and guilt are important, because they mean you recognize you did something wrong. But what matters now is what you do with those feelings. The waiter came to take our order, and after he left, Valeria continued. I want to tell you something, she said. After our fight, Weston said something to me that annoyed me a lot at the time, but I've been thinking about it since. What did he tell you? He said that if he treated his mother the way I treat you, he would feel like a monster. He said he had never known anyone as helpful as you, and never known anyone who took that generosity for granted as much as I do. Weston's words were harsh, but fair. You know what hurt me most from what you said 2 weeks ago? Valeria asked me. What? When you asked me when was the last time I had called you just to know how you were doing. Because when I tried to remember, I realized I never had. Never in my adult life have I called you just because I missed you or because I wanted to hear your voice. This admission hurt more than I expected. Not because it was a surprise, but because it confirmed something I had already noticed but felt crazy for noticing. Mom, Valeria continued. I want to get to know you. Truly get to know you. Not just as my mother, but as Margaret.
I want to know what you like to do in your free time.
I want to know what your dreams are that have nothing to do with me. I want to know what makes you laugh, what worries you, what excites you. Why now? I asked. Why not before? Valeria thought for a moment before answering. I think before, I couldn't see you as a whole person because I was too busy seeing you as my safety net. It was easier to keep you in that box of the always available mother than to recognize that you were an entire woman with your own life and your own needs. And what changed? What changed was that for the first time in my life, you said no to me. You set a real boundary, and I realized I had been taking advantage of someone who loved me too much to protect herself from me. Our food arrived, but neither of us touched our plates immediately. Valeria, I said, I appreciate everything you're telling me, but I need you to understand that words are only the beginning. I need to see real changes in the way you treat me. I understand, she said immediately. Can you tell me exactly what you need to see? I pulled out my phone and opened my notes. In the 2 weeks prior, I had refined my list of boundaries. I need that when you invite me to something, you tell me exactly what you expect of me from the start.
No surprises, no hidden agendas.
Agreed. I need that when you ask me for help, you ask if I can and want to, not assume I'll say yes. Agreed. I need that you respect it when I tell you I can't or don't want to do something, without making me feel guilty for having boundaries. Agreed. And I need you to invest as much in our relationship as I do. That you sometimes just call me to talk, that you remember important dates for me, that you include me in your life because you want me there, not because you need something. Valeria nodded at each point, but then added something I didn't expect. Mom, she said, I also need something from you. What do you need? I need you to tell me when something bothers you, the moment it bothers you, not to save it up until you explode. I need you to trust that I can handle the truth about your feelings. Her request surprised me, but it also gave me hope. It meant she was genuinely thinking about how our relationship could work better for both of us. I can do that, I said. But you have to be prepared to hear things you might not want to hear. I am prepared, she said. Or at least, I'm willing to learn to be prepared. Finally, we began to eat, and for the first time in years, we shared a meal where we truly talked. Valeria asked me about my computer classes, about my friends, about my plans for the next year, and she listened, truly listened, without looking at her phone, without turning the subject back to herself. When we finished eating, Valeria looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. Mom, she said, I know this will take time. I know I can't undo years of bad behavior with one conversation, but I want you to know that I will do the work. I will change. I believe you, I said, and I was surprised to find that it was true. But I also need you to understand that I won't stay silent like before if you don't keep your promises. I wouldn't expect you to, she said. The new Margaret doesn't stay silent.
And I'm glad she doesn't.
As we walked to our cars, Valeria gently took my arm. "May I ask you something?" she said.
Of course. Is there any way you can forgive me?
"Valeria," I said, pausing to look at her directly.
I have already forgiven you.
But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back to what was before. It means I'm willing to start fresh with you, if you are truly ready to change. We hugged, and for the first time in a long time, the hug felt genuine. It felt like two adult women who loved and respected each other, not a daughter condescending to her mother.
I'll call you tomorrow, Valeria said. Just to check in.
I'd love that very much, I said. As I drove home, I realized that something fundamental had changed. Not just in Valeria, but in me too. I had learned that I could love my daughter without sacrificing my dignity. I had learned that I could set boundaries without losing love. I had learned that I deserved respect, even from my own family. But I also knew that this was just the beginning. Promises are easy to make, real change is hard to sustain. The true test would come in the weeks and months ahead, when we would see if Valeria could truly maintain this new version of our relationship. The following 3 weeks were a constant test of patience and hope. Valeria kept her promise to call me the day after lunch, but the conversation was awkward, forced. It was obvious she was trying to be different but didn't quite know how. "How was your day, Mom?" she asked me, and I could hear in her voice that she was reading from a mental list of appropriate questions. "Good," I replied. "I went to my aerobics class at the park. Afterward, I had lunch with Emery." "Oh, how nice," she said. And then there was a long silence. It was clear she didn't know what else to ask. "Valeria," I said softly, "you don't have to force the conversations. It's okay if it feels strange at first." "I just don't know how," she admitted. "I don't know how to talk to you without needing something." Her honesty was painful, but I appreciated it. "You learn through practice," I said, "and by being patient with both of us." In the second week, Valeria invited me to accompany her to buy a gift for Angelina, whose birthday was approaching. But when I met her at the mall, I realized she had brought Weston and that they had several other errands planned afterward. "Mom," she said when I mentioned I thought we were just buying the gift. "Since we're already here, I thought we could take the opportunity." "No," I said calmly. "You explicitly invited me to buy a gift for Angelina. If you wanted me to help you with other things, you should have told me from the start." Weston looked at me in surprise, probably used to me accepting every change of plan without complaint.
"So you're leaving?"
Valeria asked me, and I could hear confusion in her voice. "I'm leaving," I confirmed, "but I hope you both enjoy the rest of your errands." That night, Valeria called me, frustrated. "Mom, I feel like nothing I do now is right with you." "Valeria," I said, "what you did today was the exact old pattern. You invited me under a pretext and then changed the rules without consulting me. Don't you see that's exactly what you promised never to do again?" There was a long pause. "You're right," she said. "I did it automatically, without thinking." "That's exactly the problem," I said. "You've treated me a certain way for so long that it's automatic. Changing that will require conscious effort." "Can I try again?" she asked. "You can always try again," I said. "But I need you to truly think before you act." The third week brought the true test. Angelina came to visit for her birthday, and Valeria wanted to host a family dinner. When she called me to invite me, I was very specific in my questions. "What do you need from me for this dinner?" I asked directly. "Just for you to come," she said.
"I'll cook." "Are you sure?" "You don't need me to bring anything to help prepare, to come early to help."
"No, Mom, I just want you to come and enjoy." On the day of the dinner, I arrived exactly at the agreed time. Valeria had indeed cooked, the table was set, and when I came in, she greeted me with a genuine smile. "Mom, how wonderful you're here," she said. And for the first time in years, I felt like she was genuinely happy to see me. Not because she needed something, but because she wanted me there. The dinner was beautiful. Valeria had prepared food she knew I liked. She had put on music she remembered from her childhood, and she had created a warm, family atmosphere. Angelina beamed, telling us about her studies, her plans, her dreams. But in the middle of dinner, Valeria got up and came back with a stack of printed photos. "Mom," she said, "I found these photos when I was tidying my room last week." They were photos from her childhood, photos of us cooking together, of birthdays, of small trips we had taken. In every photo, I was smiling genuinely, completely present, obviously happy to be with my daughter. "Something became clear to me when I saw these photos," Valeria continued. "I realized there was a time when I was your priority, not your obligation." Her words touched me deeply, because they were exactly right. "And I realized," she continued, "that at some point, I stopped treating you as my priority too." "When do you think that happened?" I asked softly. Valeria thought for a moment. "I think when I got married, I think I started taking it for granted that you would always be there. So I stopped making an effort to make sure you wanted to be there." "And after that," Angelina added, "you started treating her like a service instead of a person?" "Exactly," Valeria admitted, looking directly at me. "And I am very sorry for doing that." "You know what the difference is between this apology and the previous ones?" I asked. "What?" "This time, you're not asking me to go back to what was before. This time, you're acknowledging that what was before was wrong." "Because it was wrong," Valeria said firmly. "Completely wrong." After dinner, while Angelina and Weston did the dishes, Valeria and I sat in her living room. But this time, I wasn't sitting on the sofa as a guest. I was sitting in the comfortable armchair like someone who belonged there. "Mom," Valeria said, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Tell me, do you think I can truly change? Or do you think this is just temporary, until I forget and go back to my old habits?" Her question was vulnerable and honest, and deserved an honest answer. "Valeria," I said, "I believe you want to change, and I believe you've made genuine efforts these past few weeks, but I also believe that changing decades-old patterns is one of the hardest tasks there is." "So you don't trust that I can do it?" "I trust that you can do it," I said, "but I'm also prepared for you to fail sometimes. The difference is that I will tell you now when you fail, and you will have to decide if you want to keep trying or if you give up." "I won't give up," she said determinedly. "I promise you." "Don't make promises," I said. "Just keep doing the work day after day." That night, as I drove home, I realized I had spent an entire evening with my family without feeling used, without feeling invisible, without feeling like an employee. I had felt like Margaret, like a mother, like a grandmother, like a respected and valued woman. It was just one night, but it was a beginning. When I arrived at my apartment, I found a text message from Valeria. "Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for giving me the chance to do my best. I love you." I replied, "I love you too, and I'm proud of the effort you're making." It was the truth. Despite everything that had happened, despite the pain and frustration, I was proud to see my daughter trying to become a better person. Not because she owed it to me, but because she owed it to herself. But I also knew that the true test was yet to come, because it's easy to change when the pain of conflict is still fresh. The hard part is sustaining the change when life returns to normal, when the old temptations and old habits call again. Only time would tell if the new Valeria was genuine or if it was just a temporary version created out of fear of losing me. 6 months later, I woke up one Sunday morning with a feeling I hadn't had in years, genuine anticipation for the day ahead. Not because I had to do something for someone else, but because I had chosen to do things that brought me joy. My morning routine had become sacred to me. Coffee on my balcony, checking messages from my friends group, planning my day according to my own desires. This particular Sunday, I planned to go to the farmer's market with Alexandra, then have lunch at a new restaurant with Ryder, and video call Angelina in the afternoon, who wanted to show me her new apartment. My phone rang at 10 a.m. It was Valeria, as it had been every Sunday for the past few months. "Good morning, Mom," she said, her voice sounding relaxed. "How did you sleep?" "Very well, my dear," I replied, and it was completely true. "And how are you?" "Good too. Weston's working out, and I'm enjoying the quiet in the house." She paused for a moment. "Mom, do you have plans for this afternoon?" For a second, I felt that old automatic alarm, but then I remembered that Valeria had consistently kept her promises for months.
Yes, I said honestly. I'm going to video call Angelina. Why?
Because I found something I think you'll like, and I wanted to bring it to you. But if you're busy, I can bring it another day.
What did you find? I asked, curious.
It's a little surprise.
Something I saw that made me think of you.
That was new. In all my years as Valeria's mother, she had never just seen something random and thought of me.
You know what, I said.
Angelina and I had scheduled the call for 4 o'clock. Would you like to come around 5 o'clock? You can stay for dinner if you like.
Are you sure? I don't want to disrupt your day.
Valeria, I said, smiling. I would love to see you.
And it was true.
Somewhere in those months, I had stopped seeing Valeria's visits as interruptions or obligations and had started seeing them as what they always should have been. Precious time with my daughter, because we both wanted to be together. That afternoon, after a wonderful video call with Angelina, where she showed me every corner of her new home and told me about her rotations at the hospital, Valeria arrived promptly at 5 o'clock with a small bag in her hands.
What did you bring?
I asked as I made coffee for both of us. Wait, she said, smiling mysteriously. She pulled a small frame from the bag and handed it to me. It was a photo of the two of us, but it wasn't an old photo. It was a photo someone had taken of us during Angelina's birthday dinner months ago, when we were laughing about something Weston had said. In the photo, we were both completely present, completely happy, completely ourselves.
When was this photo taken? I asked.
Angelina took it without us realizing, Valeria said.
She sent it to me last week, and when I saw it, something became clear to me. What became clear to you?
It became clear to me that it's the first photo of us in years where we both truly look happy. Not posing happily for the photo, but genuinely happy to be together.
She was right.
The photo showed the genuine affection, the mutual enjoyment, the ease that we had slowly rebuilt. And I realized, Valeria continued, that I wanted more moments like these. Moments where we are together because we want to be together.
You know what I like best about this photo? I said. What?
That neither of us is pretending to be someone else. You're not pretending to be the perfect daughter, and I'm not pretending to be the mother who never says no.
Exactly, Valeria said.
We're ourselves, the real versions. We sat in my living room, drinking coffee and talking about our weeks. Valeria told me about a new project at work, about a movie she had seen, about a conversation she had had with a friend. I told her about my classes, about a new recipe I had tried, about a book I was currently reading. It was a normal, everyday conversation, like mothers and daughters have when they truly know and enjoy each other.
Mom, Valeria said after a while. May I ask you something?
Of course.
Do you feel happy?
I mean, in general, with your life, do you feel happy? The question surprised me with its simplicity and its depth. Yes, I said after a short reflection.
I feel happy. I feel whole.
Whole as? Whole as Margaret, I said. Not just as your mother, not just as Angelina's grandmother, but as a woman who has friends who love her, activities she enjoys, a life she has built for herself.
And? She asked.
Are you happy with our relationship?
I'm hopeful, I said honestly.
I feel like we're finally getting to know each other as the people we really are.
I feel the same way, she said. It's strange, but I feel like I'm just getting to know you.
The real Margaret, not the mother who does everything without complaint that I had created in my head.
Do you like the real Margaret?
I asked, and I was surprised by my vulnerability as I asked the question. I love the real Margaret, she said immediately. I like that you have strong opinions. I like that you tell me when you disagree with me. I like getting to know your friends and your interests. I like that you're a whole person, not just my mother. Her words filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in years.
You know what I've learned these past few months? I said. What?
I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity for them. I've learned that setting boundaries doesn't mean loving less. And I've learned that I deserve to be treated with respect, even by the people I love most.
And what have I learned?
Valeria asked aloud. What have you learned? I've learned that an available mother is not the same as a genuine relationship with your mother. I've learned that respect is something you give, not something you demand. And I've learned that relationships require conscious effort, not automatic ones. As I listened to her, I realized that we had both grown in these months. I had reclaimed my self-worth, and she had learned what it means to truly appreciate another human being. Mom, Valeria said before she left that evening. Thank you. For what are you thanking me? For not giving up on me, for fighting for us, even when it was uncomfortable and difficult. Thank you, I said, for doing the work of change, even when it was hard. After she left, I sat in my living room, looking at the photo she had brought me. It was a simple photo, but it represented something extraordinary. Two women who had chosen to truly love each other. Not out of convenience, not out of dependence, but out of genuine choice. My phone vibrated with a message from Alexandra. How was Valeria's visit? Perfect, I replied. Of course, easy. Real. I'm so happy for you, my dear, she replied. You look so happy lately. And it was true, I was happy. Not with the forced happiness of someone pretending everything is okay, but with the quiet happiness of someone who has found their place in the world. That night, as I prepared for bed, I thought about everything that had changed in less than a year. I had gone from a mother constantly sacrificing for crumbs of attention to a woman who had reclaimed her dignity and, in doing so, had gained a genuine relationship with her daughter. It hadn't been easy. It had required courage to set boundaries, patience to uphold them, and a struggle to believe that genuine love could survive honesty. But it had been completely worth it. I lay in my bed in my apartment, surrounded by my life that I had rebuilt with my own hands, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Finally, after many years of living for others, I was the one deciding whom to love, how to love, and who deserved my time and energy. And for the first time in a long time, that person also included myself.